Welcome to the Cash Car Convert Podcast, episode number 38.
You're listening to the Cash Car Convert Podcast with James Kinson.
Hey everybody, this is James Kinson, the Cash Car Convert. Welcome to another episode of the Cash Car Convert Podcast. This is the podcast where cash cars are cool and auto debt is dangerous to your financial future. Let me start this episode by apologizing. Last week I did not get an episode out, and I really felt bad about it. And I don't know, there were a lot of things going on. My wife and daughter were out of town. I had traveled myself, and I just had all these ideas for the podcast. And I even recorded an episode 3 different times, only to realize that they weren't worthy of hitting the publish button on. So I did not put anything out last week. I don't want to put something out that I don't think is going to be valuable to you guys. So I just want to, apologize for not getting something out. But I do want you to know that when I'm putting an episode out, I really hope that there's value in it. And it's certainly, I'm going to have a belief that there's value in it if I put it out. Now, having said that, I've had a few episodes where when I did hit the publish button, I felt like maybe I didn't convey my message properly, or, maybe I didn't have as much content in it as I should. And it's kind of interesting. The couple of episodes where I've had that happen, both times I've had people reach out to me and tell me how much the episode meant to them. So I do also acknowledge that I'm not always the best judge of my own content as I'm creating it and believing that it's got the value in it that I'm hoping to provide to everybody. So I wanted to contrast a story this week with the one that I did a couple of weeks ago. I relayed a couple of weeks ago that a friend of the family had gotten laid off, but fortunately the car that they had thought about trading in for a vehicle that would have had payments on it, they didn't do it, and so therefore now they still have this car and they don't have any payments to be concerned about on it. So I mentioned that, hey, they don't have to worry about getting their car repossessed. Well, last week I had somebody contact me and they said, hey, James, I'm going to be needing your services pretty soon. And I said, okay, that's great. What's going on? And they said, well, a friend of mine was laid off a while back and has been unable to work. They just got their car repossessed. And I just thought, wow, I mean, that would be a really bad feeling. You're already out of work. You're already struggling to make ends meet. And now you've lost your means of transportation. The city that this person lives in does require a car. I know there's places. I just was in Washington, D.C. this past week. And that's a city where they have the metro. You can walk. You can ride, the subway. And you can get around just fine. There's lots of ways to get around. But in cities like Dallas, Fort Worth, and cities like Los Angeles, that's a much more difficult thing to do, and you do need a vehicle. So I just, I really felt for these people. So I'm definitely going to be sharing some insight with them when they're ready to buy a car, and maybe I'll have them come on and share that with you. So speaking of people being laid off, or out of work, I keep hearing how the unemployment rate keeps going down, and that, we're down, I think the last number I heard was 6.1%. And yet I know I keep hearing of people that have lost their job. And so it made me wonder about that number. And so I found an article that just came out on the 29th of July, and it's in the Washington Times by a gentleman by the name of Peter Morici. Peter says that the real unemployment stands at least 18%. And what we don't always know, those of us who don't pay as much attention to the news, is that when a worker gives up on hunting for a job, then the people who keep track of this for the government, the unemployment rate, they remove those people from the employment rolls and say, okay, these people have given up on finding another job, and therefore they're not going to pursue a job, and therefore, we're not going to consider them unemployed anymore, which really seems kind of crazy to me. that almost tells me we have a bigger problem than just the unemployment number. If we've got people who are giving up on ever getting another job, that's a real challenge. So I don't know how you help people with hope. As many of you know, my story, I was laid off 1 month before my first son was born, and I'll never forget what kind of a kick in the gut that was. And I just remember as a man feeling like, it's my job to support my family. It's my job to provide for my wife and my child. If I'm not able to do that, then what kind of a man am I? It can really be a blow to who you are. And so I could definitely see people, if they've been unemployed a while and have looked for a job and not had much success with it, giving up. It just does something to you on the inside. I completely get that. But for us not to consider them when we're talking about unemployment, and for us to say that our economy is getting better because the unemployment rate is going down, when there are people out there who've given up on looking for a job and they're no longer counted, it seems to me we're using some pretty fuzzy math there. So anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that, one of the reasons I do this show is because I'm concerned about those kinds of things. I don't want you who are listening to this to find yourself unemployed and then also without a car, living in a city where, you have to have one to be able to get around. That's one of the main motivators I have for this. It's not just the getting out of debt. It's what that does for you, the freedom it gives you, the more margin it gives you in your life. Yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is debt in America. The Urban Institute looked at numbers in 2013 that they got from TransUnion, and they looked at debt in America, and they had some really interesting conclusions that were drawn from that, and I'd really like to share some of those on this show. And the first thing I have to say about that is that 9% of the population has no credit score. So 9% of the population is not included in that. That's about 22 million people. So you're really talking about 91% of the people who have some type of credit score. That's the population that they were looking at. And what they found was really, I thought, pretty interesting. One of the things they found is that of those people who have a credit score, 35%, so over 1/3, have at least a debt in collection. Now, it doesn't mean it's a huge debt. It could be something fairly small that somebody didn't pay. Maybe it was a dispute. Who knows? But I'm suspecting that a majority of those have something to do with somebody's ability to pay. Now, the interesting thing about that is I had a friend who went to an engineering college, and it was very rigorous and difficult, and only 1/3 of the people were going to finish. And so at freshman orientation, the gentleman at the front of the room was talking to all the students, and he said, okay, I want you to look to the person on your right and the person on your left. Okay, of the three of you, only one of you is going to finish this program. And so I kind of thought that same way when I heard this number. Now, I know that this is really only 91% of the population, so the math doesn't really quite work the way I'm going to say it. But it put me in mind of that same thing, and I thought, okay, if I take my house and I take the house on the right of me and the house on the left of me, according to this study, one of us has a debt in collection. So think about that in your own neighborhood. Take a look at the people on the right or left of you, and if you don't have a debt in collection, probably one of those people do. It's pretty wild to think about that many people have a debt in collection. So really, really, really crazy stuff. So what I'm trying to get at with all of this is when you tie these two studies together and you find that, about 18% of the population doesn't have a job, and 1/3 of people who have credit scores have a debt in collection, it paints a pretty scary story of the way a lot of people have to live their lives. And what I want to do is I want to contrast this. I'm a member of Toastmasters, and here in the DFW area, there's lots and lots of Toastmaster clubs, and I've been a member since October of 2013, so not quite a year yet. Just recently completed my Competent Communicator book, so despite the way I sometimes sound on this podcast, I'm now considered a competent communicator. Makes me laugh. But I was speaking to a lady there, and she's been so nice to me all the time that I've been at the club. She's been willing to help me and just really has been over backwards to be a good mentor to me in my speaking. And she and I were talking the other day after a meeting, and she shared with me that through the course of her life, she had 5 jobs, and she worked as an executive administrative assistant for most of that time. And she talked about how her father, when she was a young girl, told her, listen, when you work, there's 2 things you want to do to leave yourself to be financially successful. He said the first thing is you want to work at a company that has a pension. That's pretty difficult these days. Not a lot of companies now have any kind of pension program. Most of them have gone to having you work with 401ks and so forth. And there's pros and cons there. I mean, the good news is you control it. You can put money in your 401k and you can build your own wealth, and you're going to have it. A pension was great because it might wind up netting you more over time, and you didn't control it, so you couldn't go and raid it or borrow against it or anything like that. But by the same token, some companies went out of business and bankrupt, and it impacted those people who thought they had a pension waiting for them. So, there's pros and cons, but nonetheless, this is what her dad told her, and when she was working, that was something that she could do, and so she did. The second thing that he told her was whatever company program there is for investing, you invest to the max in those programs. And that's, I think, a really wise thing. And that's something that you and I can do. I really think it's critical. And this goes back to no matter how much money you earn, you want to live on, within your means and less than what you make. And it's kind of an interesting thing. A lot of people will say, I'll live on less than I make when I make more. And I think I've had I've read enough books about this, and I've talked to enough people about it, that really money doesn't change your behavior. You think you will be a different person when you have more money, but really you won't be. If you're the kind of person that saves money now, you'll be the kind of person that saves money when you have more of it. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't save money now, you won't save money no matter how much you have. So it's really all about learning how to handle your money. And these programs that you have at work where you can invest in them, and oftentimes the company will deduct the money before you ever see it, those are great ways to invest. And it's been one thing that really saved me is the investment in my 401k. There's a lot of mistakes I made along the way with lots of financial decisions in my life. But the one thing that I learned early on and was told to do was to invest in my 401k and get the company match and get that going. And believe me, when I started, I did not think I had enough money to do that, but I did it anyway. And I'm so happy now that I did, because I have a nice little nest egg, over and above my emergency fund and those kinds of things that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Well, this lady did the same thing. She invested in whatever program there was at her places of business, and invested the max in them. And so I don't know how much an executive assistant made, over the course of this lady's life. But I'm going to guess that a lot of you out there make a lot more than that in the jobs that you have. My point is that when she was 65 years old, the gentleman she had been an assistant to moved on to another job. And she didn't want to move to another state, so she decided that she was just going to retire. And this is what really caught me about this story. Most of us, when we retire, we're trying to figure out how we can live on less and do less. And she was living in a 2-bedroom house when she retired. And when she retired, she had a 4-bedroom house built because she wanted to have room in her house for people to come and see her family to come in. All of her kids live remotely. They don't live near her. They're out of state. So she wanted to have room for them. And the other thing she wanted to do is she wanted to go buy all new furniture to populate this house. Now, I found this really interesting because it's just such a contrast to what most of us are thinking about when we're thinking about retirement. And I heard on a podcast recently, there was an author that was being interviewed, and this author said that there's this myth that you can work all of your life and save and live below your means, and that you can come out wealthy on the other side. And that's just not true. You can certainly be better off, but not wealthy. And in true terms, maybe not wealthy in the truest sense, right? You're probably not going to come out as a a decamillionaire or having 100 million or $1 billion, right? If you're going to build that kind of wealth, yeah, you probably have to start some kind of a business and build it over time to have an opportunity to get that kind of wealth. But this lady, she has the kind of wealth that allows her to live the life that she wants. She drives her cars about 10 years. She pays cash for them. And, she goes out and buys a new one when she wants one. She's very intentional about it. She travels to see her grandkids and her great-grandkids, and she loves her life. And she was just, she had the biggest smile on her face talking about how much she loved her life and her ability to, to do things. And I know a lot of people who are young out there are thinking, yeah, when I get old, that's great. But I don't want to wait until I'm old to have something. Well, hey, I'm all for that too. If you have a dream in your heart, go for it. Start that business. Do the thing that's going to, make your heart sing. That's going to give you passion and put a smile on your face when you wake up in the morning and realize that you get to do that thing all day long. If you're not that person, if you don't want to take what you consider to be a risk of doing something on your own, then make sure that you're taking care of yourself in your current role in your current job. Get your debts paid down. Make sure that you can put money in your 401k or whatever kind of benefit package there is at your place of employment. And if you don't have that, then get in a Roth IRA or an IRA outside of your place of business to start putting some money away for your future. Because your future's going to come. You're going to get older, assuming something doesn't happen to you along the way. And your life will just be a lot better if you're prepared for it. I mean, again, I wish you could have seen the look on this woman's face telling me the story of how she loves her life. Just loved it. And, does she have problems in her life? You bet. Everybody does. Money doesn't solve that. But it's one less thing to worry about. And in our society, living here in the United States, it's a pretty important thing not to worry about. There's a lot of us out there who spend a lot of time worrying about how much money we make and do we have enough to make ends meet. Well, if you live within your means, then you certainly will have enough to make ends meet. And you'll put some away for the future. I was talking on my show a couple of weeks ago that I listened to Andy Stanley. And one of the things he talked about with his wife recently, he did an episode or a series called Guardrails. And he talked about how he and his wife were very fortunate early in their marriage that they were counseled by some people who had been married a long time. And they took the opportunity to pick the brains of those people about what made their marriages work. And some of the early advice they got was to live on about half of what they made. And I know a lot of you out there must be just thinking, wow, that is really crazy. But that's what they did. They lived on about half of what they made. They always did a budget, and they always talked about their finances. And now that they've been married many, many years, they have lots of margin in their life. If there's a disaster around the world somewhere or somebody in need that they want to give money to, they can. They can because they've been responsible, they've taken care of their finances, and they've been blessed, and now they can bless others. So I say all that to hopefully tie all this together. We've got a lot of people who are unemployed. We've got a lot of people who are probably still going to be losing their job over the next few years as companies retrench and try to figure out what's going on. I know the stock market's up a lot right now. The Fed keeps printing money and keeping interest rates low, and that's all well and good, but it's our responsibility as adults to plan for our future and to take care of ourselves and our families. So I encourage you to think about that. Don't always assume that you're going to have a job for the next 5, 10, 15 years. I think the average term of employment right now is about 4.5 years. So make sure that you're giving yourself some margin in your life so you can take care of yourself and your family and have something put aside. Get your debt paid down. Do not be 1/3 of the people with a credit score and be in debt with some kind of a debt in collection. So I'm really going to encourage you. Pay off your debts. Put some margin in your life. Start with that car. Get rid of that car that's dragging you down with debt, that's exposing you to the risk of being carless in the event that you lose your job. Give yourself some margin. There's something else I want to talk about before closing. I was thinking I might wrap up here, but there's something else that's been on my mind recently. I have a friend who I follow on Facebook, and he and I have known each other a long time. I'm going to say about 4 years ago, he started posting on Facebook that he was using this app, Couch to 5K, to start running, and he was going to run a 5K. And as somebody who used to run, I remember seeing that and thinking, gosh, I think I should start running again too. That would probably be good for me to do something like that. So my friend started running, and he completed his first 5K, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but he completed that 5K in, I think, 35 or 36 minutes. So something less than 12 minutes a mile. Well, as I say, at the same time, I started thinking, I need to do this as well. So I started doing some walking, running kinds of things. And the reason I bring this up is because I noticed the other day he posted on Facebook that he did a 5-mile run, and he did that 5-mile run in 8 minutes and 30 seconds. And, there's a lot of people that are runners, and there's a lot of people that have, more or less natural ability to run. So 8.5 minutes a mile is fast for some people, and it's not for others. So that's not really the point. The point is that he went from running 12-minute miles, roughly, to 8.5-minute miles over a longer distance. And the way he did that was by taking consistent steps over time, running consistently every week over a period of years, and he saw this improvement in his life. Now, I want to contrast that with me, who didn't stay consistent with it. I have started the run-walk thing multiple times and not stayed with it. And so therefore, I'm still running / walking miles in the teens of time, right? So if I do a good run-walk, I'll be down around 12 or 13 minutes a mile. I can't go out and run 5 miles right now, not even at 10 minutes a mile, right? So my point is that by taking small steps of consistent action over time, and really consistency is the key that I'm talking about here, you can change your life. You can make a big difference. I'm going to recommend a couple of books to you guys. There's The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson and John David Mann, and there's The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And what both of these books talk about is exactly that by doing small things over time consistently, you can make big changes. I'm talking about my friend and myself in terms of exercise, but really, let's put that in context with debt, because if I look at that from a debt perspective, then in 2009, I was out of shape financially, and I started doing things and taking steps to get myself healthy financially. And over time, those steps worked to reduce the debt that I have. Other than mortgages on my home and some rental property that we own, I'm debt-free. I don't have any debt on my cars. I don't have any debt with credit cards. I have an emergency fund that's fully funded for multiple months, over 6 months of my expenses. I've gotten financially fit over that time period while my friend was getting physically fit. And so I just wanted to compare and contrast those things to tell you that, whether you need to get in shape or physically or financially, you can take small steps and really have a major impact. You can also take some bigger steps along the way with finances that can have a bigger impact. Like my wife and I sold some of our rental property, and that was a way we were able to remove some debt from our lives. And that's, something that you can do, either on a bigger or smaller scale, depending on what your situation is. On the exercise front, it's a little harder. You have to pay your dues daily there to see the benefits. So there's not a complete correlation there to the way those things work. But I think it's worth keeping in mind that no matter what you're doing in life, if you can just do a little bit more tomorrow than you did today and keep yourself consistently on a path of improvement, then over time, you're going to see those benefits. And as my dad used to tell me, 5 years from now, you're going to be 5 years older. Or you're going to be 5 years better off. That's kind of up to you. And I guess the last thing I'm going to say today is I was on a flight back from Washington, D.C. yesterday. And I sat next to a teenage girl who was getting ready to start her senior year. And she and her family were flying out to San Diego to visit some friends. And this girl, she was so well polished and articulate. She had a real plan for her life. Her father's doing quite well in a company that he works at, and so she's afforded a lot of opportunities. She goes to a really good school in Washington D.C. she knows what colleges she wants to go to. She knows what she wants to do with her life, and she has a plan. And I thought, wow, I don't know how this girl's life is going to turn out, but the fact that she's planning her life at such a young age, I think she's probably going to be okay. And so I don't know where you are in your life. You may be like me, closer to retirement than you are to the starting phase. But no matter where you are, you can make changes and you can start to plan your life. So start thinking about where you want to be 5 years from now and start putting a plan in place to get there. Maybe in 5 years, all you can be is out of debt. That's okay. That is a really big deal, because then the 5 years after that are going to be a lot better than the 5 years you went through to get out of debt. For some of you, maybe you're on the verge of being out of debt already, or you could sell some things and get out of debt quickly. For you, you might be surprised at how much wealth you could build over the next 5 years. Wherever you are, start thinking about a plan, start executing a plan. Remember that small incremental steps add up. And as my dad said, the time is going to pass anyway. So where are you going to be in the next 5 years? I would encourage you to be driving a cash car and to have your debt paid down, to have some margin in your life, and be ready for anything. Okay, so I'm going to start stop yammering on here. And I'm going to let you guys know that this is August 2nd, and I'm going to be at the Podcast Movement in Dallas on the 16th and 17th of August at the Westin and the Galleria area there of Dallas. And there's going to be 500 or 600 podcasters there. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I would love to see you while I'm there. I'd love to have you attend the conference as well. I think podcasting is such a wonderful medium. It's given me so much insight and so much value. I still just love listening to podcasts, and I've also made a lot of friends through podcasting, so I'd love to see you there. Also, I'm going to be speaking at FinCon 14 in New Orleans, and that's going to be the 18th through the 20th of September. And I would really, once again, if you're in that area, I'd love to shake your hand and maybe take some time to have a drink with you or whatever. If you're in the area, I'd love to meet you. So please reach out to me if you're listening to this show and you live in that area, or if you're going to be attending FinCon. Definitely, let's catch up for sure. I'm really looking forward to these conferences because so many of the people I meet online don't live near me. So I've got all these friends that I interact with that I haven't met yet, and I know going to Podcast Movement into FinCon, I'm going to get to shake a lot of hands myself and meet some people that have really helped me on my journey. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing that's going on right now is there's an electronic magazine called Pottertainment Magazine. Gary Leland puts this out. Gary is also involved with the Podcast Dallas meetups that happen on a monthly basis. And I spoke at that Podcast Dallas meetup in February. When I did, Gary filmed it. And I knew he was going to use it in Pottertainment eventually, but I didn't know how it was going to be used or what he was going to do with it. I can tell you that I was very surprised to see that I was on the cover of issue number 5. So if you go out and you Google Pottertainment Magazine, you'll find the link to Gary's website, and you'll see my smiling face on the cover of issue number 5. So I'd encourage you to go out there and take a look at that. This is really, if you're interested in podcasting at all, this is a very useful magazine. It's got wonderful articles by some of the smartest people in podcasting, and the cost is, I believe it's $12.99. So it's $13 for 12 issues. I know the value I've gotten out of it, so I wanted to be sure and make you aware of that. One, just in case you wanted to see my speech in February that I gave to Podcast Dallas, but also to promote the magazine. I think, again, Gary's doing some great things there, and he loves podcasting a great deal. I know it's benefited him in many ways. I definitely wanted to share his magazine with you there. I'm still working on my book, The Cash Car Solution: How to Escape Debt, Drive for Less, and Invest in Yourself. And I've really been struggling to get through that. I've had a lot of travel the last few weeks. My wife and daughter were out of town, and you'd think I could get more done when they're away, but boy, it just sucked the motivation out of me, to be honest. I missed them so much. I love having them around, and it really sapped me, them not being here. So I'm very glad they're back, and it's wonderful to see their smiling faces, and it definitely helps to rev my engine up. So So I'm getting back on track with that, and I hope to have that out here very soon. So I'm going to continue to work on that, and I'll definitely let you guys know when that's coming out and when you can expect that. And I'm anxious to get it going and to be able to help people escape the car debt. The final thing here is reviews. I've gotten a number of new reviews, so I'm up to 43 reviews as of this recording. I'm still looking to get up to 50 ratings and reviews, and I'll be giving out the Dave Ramsey, Rachel Cruz book, Smart Money, Smart Kids, autographed by both the authors. So I'm really excited about that. I know that's going to be a lot of fun, and somebody's going to benefit a lot from that. And if you don't win it, I would still encourage you to go out and buy it. I think there's a lot of good wisdom there. And wow, bringing the next generation up to be much wiser with their money, that's just going to be a blessing to individual households and people. But if we can get enough people who believe in taking care of their finances, then I think we can also do the same with our government. And I think that'll really help with some of our debt situation if we have a government that models better behavior for us about how we handle money. Ratings and reviews, please go out there and give one. It's cashcarconvert.com/iTunes is where you can leave me a rating and review. And the show notes for this episode will be at cashcarconvert.com/038. Again, that's cashcarconvert.com/038. So I'll have links to the Urban Institute's study on debt in America. I'll have a link to Peter Morici's article in the Washington Times. And I'll have a link, obviously, to the podcast movement, to FinCon 14, to Pottertainment Magazine, and the links to allow you to go in there and rate and review in iTunes. So again, I just want to close apologizing for missing a week. I don't want to be that guy who does that sort of thing. So my apologies to you, my listeners. I know how much it hurts me when one of my podcasts doesn't publish, and it kind of leaves a hole in the week for me. So I really appreciate you listeners, and I'm going to do my best to stay on schedule going forward here. And, actually on that front, I'll just say if you guys have any ideas for episodes, I'd really be interested, because this show is about helping people who listen to it. And I do want to make sure that I'm providing value to you, the listener, and that it's not just me talking about what interests me, but really talking about what's going to help you. Because I have ideas. I have all kinds of ideas coming to me all the time. And that was my problem a week ago. I couldn't get them all sorted in a way that made sense to me. And so I was kind of not happy with the results, which is why I didn't publish. So again, my apologies for that. Looking to get back on track here with releasing this episode. Well, thank you for listening. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you've had a great couple of weeks. This is James Kenson. I'm going to remind you to buy a cash car and kick auto debt to the curb. God bless. Hey, everybody, I'm back. There was one more thing I wanted to touch base on before I closed out the podcast, and that's the Poultice Awards. Now, the Poultice Awards, they recognize the best of personal finance in the blogosphere. And in this case, the blogosphere also includes podcasting. So I would really appreciate it if you would go out and vote for the Cash Car Convert podcast. It would really mean a lot to be recognized as one of the best personal finance podcasts out there. There are so many. But I think I bring a unique perspective. I think I'm the only one talking about cash cars in quite the way that I am, with as much focus on it as I'm giving to it. So I would really like to have an opportunity to have more people be made aware of my show. And I think by being voted one of the best personal finance podcasts, that would help bring attention to the show, that would help bring more listeners and allow me to help more people with their debt. So I would really appreciate a vote. Voting will be open between now and August 25th. And also, I'll have this linked up in the show notes. So again, cashcarconvert/038 to find all of that. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. God bless.